Welcome to another broadcast of the Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the May 21st meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. We're going to do things a little bit differently today. In honor of Memorial Day, we have our Civil Air Patrol here today, which is located at our Lorain County Regional Airport. And if I could have the color guard please post the colors. We can all recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Very nice. Gave me goosebumps. You want to bring the dog in?
Okay, we're going for a walk. This week's featured pet. Oh, don't cry. Don't
Told you he's got a lot of energy.
Oh my goodness. This week's featured pet is a male beagle mix. He is a stray. He was found near the APL on Murray Ridge Road in Elyria. He is in cage number 2 and is eligible for adoption on Saturday, May 23rd at 3 p.m. Now this week, Sunday, is my sister-in-law Alice Younker's 80th birthday. I think maybe I should give this to Alice. What do you think,
Oh,
Jack?
yes, definitely.
She would just love that. And then she won't speak to me anymore. Stop by our pound or check us out on the web. We have lots of dogs looking for a loving home.
Our thought for the day: a lot of people mistake a short memory for a clear conscience. On the internet. Teresa?
We'll do the Civil Air Patrol PowerPoint.
We have Major Chip Ingersoll. He's a squadron commander, and he has a presentation for us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me here today. My name is Major Chip Ingersoll. I'm the squadron commander of the Lorain County Composite Squadron of the Civil Air Patrol. And one of the things that, reason we're here today is just to inform you a little bit about what Civil Air Patrol is. We've been around Lorain County for a long time. We've been meeting at the Lorain County Airport, but one of those programs that a lot of people don't know about. So we're just here to kind of thank you for the support that we received from the county for the past number of years, and also to let everybody know kind of who we are and what we do. So I will get going. So what is Civil Air Patrol? Civil Air Patrol is the official auxiliary of the U.S. Air Force. We're a nonprofit organization, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, but we are modeled after the Air Force, and we provide emergency services to the country while also operating a youth program that develops young Americans into the leaders and professionals of tomorrow. Just a little history of Civil Air Patrol. It was actually established, the organization was established in 1941 under the Office of Civil Defense. It was transferred to the War Department in 1943. Civil Air Patrol was actually born out of the need to patrol and defend the U.S. shorelines against German U-boat attacks during World War II. And of course, in 1946 it was federally chartered as a nonprofit organization, and in 1948 it became the official auxiliary of the U.S. Air Force. A slide here about the organizational structure. What you can see, the thing here is just that Civil Air Patrol is its own corporation, but we are tied to the Air Force at many different echelons. So there's coordination and oversight with the Air Force in just about everything that we do. Civil Air Patrol is broken up into 8 regions and 52 wings. Every state is a wing, including Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia. So we have 52 wings in Civil Air Patrol. We're, of course, in Ohio wing, and it's broken up into 8 regions. Great Lakes region is the region that we're in, and as you can see from that slide, our national headquarters is located at Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama. Just to kind of show you, give you an idea of where the squadrons are, there are a lot of squadrons throughout the country. In Ohio, there are about 30 squadrons. We're a little bit unique because we run, there are several different missions that we'll talk about in a little bit of Civil Air Patrol, and we run all of them out here at Lorain County. So we're kind of unique in that we have a real comprehensive program here. We're one of the largest units in the state of Ohio, so and the only unit that meets here in Lorain County. 3 main missions of Civil Air Patrol. The first mission, emergency services. That's things like search and rescue. We do about 80 to 90% of the inland search and rescue for the Air Force. Homeland security, counter-drug interdiction missions, and humanitarian services. We also run a cadet program where we teach youth ages 12 to 18 years old things like leadership, physical fitness, give them the opportunity to do various special activities. Also, aerospace education. 2 facets to that, both aerospace education about aviation and space to our own members, and also by our members to the community at large. So that's what we do. Looking at emergency services, this is an ever-expanding area. As a matter of fact, it's something that's been growing for a number of years, and we do this here in Lorain County. We do inland search and rescue for the Air Force, for downed aircraft. We assist the Coast Guard with boat or EPIRB searches, personal locator beacons, things like that. We also do disaster relief, when we have flooding or hurricanes, or natural disasters, things like that. Civil Air Patrol can be called upon to do damage assessment. We can be called upon to do, go door to door, fill sandbags, anything like that. We assist in border surveillance. We assist with airborne counter-drug surveillance. Also joint training exercises with the Air Force. So a lot of stuff going on in emergency services. One of the cool parts about our emergency services program, besides the fact that we're all volunteers, and everybody that even all the adult members, we're all volunteers. We don't get paid for our time, but we come out to do this. But our emergency services program is very strongly rooted in our cadet program. And not only do we train our adult volunteers to do the emergency services type work, we train the cadets to do this as well. And not only are they allowed to take the same training, in a lot of cases, if there are actual things that we're called upon to do, the cadets can actually get involved and do those things. So it's not like where they just learn about it and then they don't ever get to use it. They learn about it and they work right alongside our adult volunteers in the areas of emergency services. So that's kind of a real neat thing. We've been very busy since 9/11. As you can see here, some of these pictures, they may look familiar to some people, but some of these earliest photos that came from Ground Zero after 9/11 came from Civil Air Patrol air crews that were overflying taking damage assessment photographs. Civil Air Patrol, we were the first aircraft in the air following 9/11, and that was what we were doing, was taking damage assessment photos. We've sent members, even locally from here, we've sent members down south for hurricane support when we've had the hurricanes. We've sent people down to do that, and nationally, lots of people went down and supported those efforts, and like I said, people from Ohio went as well, including a couple people from our local unit here. We've done things like, if you remember a number of years ago, the Amherst tornadoes, Cuyahoga River flooding, Vermilion and Norwalk flooding. We've done things like that. We've also done work with taking surveillance photos or some critical infrastructure photos for the Davis-Besse and the Perry nuclear power plants as well. So some of the things that we've been involved in, we've been involved in some joint training exercises with the Air Force. We do a lot of work because we fly, we have single-engine Cessnas that Civil Air Patrol flies. We have the largest fleet of single-engine Cessnas anywhere in the world in Civil Air Patrol. And we do have one based here at our unit in Lorain County Airport. And one of the things that we do quite a bit is we do work with the Ohio Air National Guard to help train their pilots when their F-16 pilots have to do fighter intercepts and things like that. We help and we fly as targets. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun to fly as a target for an F-16, but luckily it works, and they haven't shot us down yet, so that's a good thing. We do get support from the Air Force, as I mentioned. We don't have an operating budget per se from the Air Force, but they provide us a lot of the tools that we use, such as vehicles, our aircraft, land and mobile radios, things of that nature. We've got a lot of new technologies that CAP helps to develop, satellite digital imaging, which is something that's kind of cool we use in our aircraft. We can actually take digital photographs in the aircraft, and rather than having to wait until we land to send those pictures off to somebody, we actually have the capability of downloading those to a laptop right in the aircraft, and then using a satellite phone and an internet connection, being able to real-time send those photographs and have those back to whoever needs those photographs before the aircraft even lands. So that's kind of some neat technology. And then an Archer system, we have airborne real-time queuing, hyperspectral enhanced reconnaissance, which is just, it's kind of like finding a needle in a haystack from the air, literally. Like if we could tell it to find a needle and we flew over a haystack, we'd know right where to look. So it's kind of a new technology that Civil Air Patrol is using as well. And we do this stuff because we're all volunteers and we're not getting paid for this. We do emergency services work much more cheaply than if the Air Force sent their reservists or guardsmen to do some of the same stuff. And we have some of those tools, those light single-engine aircraft that fly slower, fly lower, and we can do a lot of that stuff really well. We also run the cadet program, and as I mentioned, the cadet program, a lot of these things cross over. The cadets do a lot of work in emergency services, but the mindset of the cadet program, we accept youth from any demographic background and any educational level into an intergenerational community-level organization that provides training and mentoring while fostering professional behavior, self-discipline, and attributes that would be welcomed by any employer. That's a big, long sentence, and my public affairs officer wrote it, but basically, the neat thing about Civil Air Patrol is that we take people from all ages, all backgrounds, and we train them together. And they work side by side. So we have our 12 and 13-year-old cadets working with adults from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, all different careers. And they're taking some of the same training and they're working together side by side. And it's really a great mentoring opportunity for our youth. And again, simply put, we're preparing today's youth for the challenges of tomorrow. Our cadet program is for youth ages 12 to 18. It's a volunteer commitment. As with our adult volunteers, there's no military commitment. Many of our adult volunteers were prior service military. It's not a requirement to be an adult volunteer. Likewise, as a cadet, it's not mandatory that they join the military after they've been in Civil Air Patrol. It's a totally volunteer commitment, although a lot of our cadets do go on to ROTC programs, service academies, join the military, but it's not always the way that it happens. They get leadership training, they get aerospace education training, They have the opportunity to wear the Air Force uniform. They gain familiarization with the Air Force and with just the military culture in general. And they have the opportunity to participate in a number of different special activities. Just as an example of a few of those, there are a number of different flight academies, different aerospace career academies that they are able to attend. Excuse me. Leadership training academies, national cadet competition. One thing I did want to mention when speaking of our national cadet competition is that the color guard that's here today that posted the colors is actually our competition color guard team, and they recently won both the state and the region championships for Civil Air Patrol color guards. So they're not only the best Civil Air Patrol color guard in Ohio, they're also the best Civil Air Patrol color guard in the Great Lakes region. And in early July, they'll be traveling to McMinnville, Oregon to compete against cadet color guards from all over the country to hopefully become the best Civil Air Patrol color guard in the country. We can keep our fingers crossed for that. So we also offer cadet orientation flights. Besides using our aircraft out at Lorain County for search and rescue and emergency services, the Air Force also provides us funding to fly our cadets and give them orientation flights in aircraft and experience that thrill of aviation. Different other opportunities for summer encampments, things like that. Opportunities to explore careers both in the Air Force and in the private sector with regard to aviation and aerospace. So some really neat things that go on there as well. Being a Civil Air Patrol cadet has paid off for quite a few people. Just a couple examples here. Major Nicole Malakowski, former Civil Air Patrol cadet. If you've been to the Cleveland Air Show in the last couple of years, you would have recognized her as Thunderbird number 3, the first female pilot to fly for the Thunderbirds, and she was a former Civil Air Patrol cadet. Major Kim Campbell, a former Civil Air Patrol cadet, safely landed her A-10 after sustaining heavy hostile gunfire over Iraq. So again, while it's not a requirement for our cadets to go on and join the military, many of them do, and most of them enjoy very successful military careers or times in service in the military because of the military training that they received through Civil Air Patrol. It puts them kind of a leg up when they get there. Aerospace education, our internal program, we kind of talked about that. The cadets have aerospace education textbooks as part of their advancements through the cadet program. We teach them about aviation and space history. We offer basic pilot ground school instruction and tours of FAA facilities. Our external program is more along the lines of our members going out to schools, to community events, things like that, and speaking to people about aerospace and aerospace education. So we get a lot of support from our communities and from Lorain County, and that's kind of why we're here today, to kind of say thank you for that. Government offices and businesses partner with CAP to provide charitable locations for meetings and activities. We've been meeting at the Lorain County Airport as long as I've been involved in Civil Air Patrol, which has been since 2000. And I know that they've met there for quite a while before that. And we certainly appreciate the space that we've been given by the people at Lorain County Airport, by the Airport Authority, who I think was the first people that allowed us to move in there when they were still operating. And Johnson Aviation, who runs the airport now, has been fantastic to work with, and they've been great to us. So we really appreciate that kind of support. Without the meeting space that we have at the airport, we couldn't do what we do for the youth in Lorain County. I mean, we couldn't do it, and it's fantastic to have that. So we certainly appreciate it. The communities and the county is also our source of membership. We're always looking for not only new cadets, but new adult volunteers. We have members from all different walks of life, and that's what really makes our squadron so fantastic. We have about 100 members in our squadron. Of those 100 members, about 45 are cadets currently, and the other 55 are adult volunteers. So it's kind of neat because you have kind of almost a 1-to-1 ratio of adults to youth, and that's where that mentorship really comes into play. But we're always looking for new people that are interested in membership, and so we get that from our communities. We have opportunities in the community to take tours and field trips and things like that, give our cadets and our members diverse experiences, joint training opportunities, logistical support. A lot of times we're able to to get assistance when we need certain things from various places throughout the community. And we also seek funding from various businesses, entities throughout the community. The American Legion, a lot of the American Legions and VFWs are very good in supporting us because we don't really have an operating budget. So although we get things from the Air Force, money that we need to do what we do comes from what we can generate ourselves. So because we are a nonprofit organization, so that's always very, very helpful. That's basically my presentation. I didn't know if anybody had any questions for me. I had one more thing, but if anybody have any questions or. Okay, fantastic. I just had before I close, I had some plaques of appreciation made for the commissioners because we certainly appreciate all the support that we've gotten from Lorain County and all of its elected officials throughout the past years. So if I could have my cadets please present those plaques to the commissioners. I'd really appreciate it. You can stay where you're at. That's fine. And with that. I'll let them do that, and thank you very much for your time and for all of your support.
Thank you for coming today, Chip. Appreciate it.
Nice presentation.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Good luck to you. Since you don't have them.
Thank you again. Hal, if you want to get a close-up of this very nice plaque. There you go. Oop, it's kind of shiny, huh? Okay, thank you very much. Teresa, move on to the next business.
Do you want to just get through the agenda and then do LCT last?
Sure, that's fine.
Under Resolutions Number 1, Job and Family Services Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
No investments, appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Advances, repayments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Travel expenses.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary for employees within jurisdiction of Lorraine County Commissioners.
Mr. Cortez?
Thank you, Commissioner. I do have a number of potential hires I wish to discuss with the board. Children and Family First and EMA, Golden Acres. I also want to discuss my continuing talks with the United Steelworkers of America. Both those subjects are allowable under the Sunshine Law, so I request that we have an executive session at the conclusion of our regular board meeting today to do so. Thank you.
Approve and waive the reading of the same for Lorraine County Board of Commissioners meeting minutes for May 14, 2009.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Approve and enter contract with Delta Dental for the county's dental provider effective retroactive January 1st, 2009 through December 31st, 2011.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Any changes with the dental plan as far as premiums or anything like that?
No, this is the plan that we accepted the proposal from back in, I think it was November. We saved about, I think it was about $80,000 or $90,000 a year This is just housekeeping to get caught up with the contracts. Actually, I thought the contract was done in January, but it got way late. So we just need to get it done to keep everything in proper order.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Authorize payment in the amount of $53,800 to Huntington Bank to pay down the principal of upcoming rolling of these highway improvement notes.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Authorize county administrator to execute all necessary documents relating to Corsa.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, Jim, this is in relationship to the fire we had last week.
It's not just a fire, Commissioner, but that kind of sparked needing to do this. There's a lot of documents that I do sign with regard to Corsa. They're administrative documents, and I wasn't certain of where all the authorities were to make those signature and not have a problem in the future. But a bulk of them have been lately related to the fire, so I just wanted to make sure we had our housekeeping issues in place.
Thank you.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Approve policy adjustments for CT on the CHIP Home Assistance Policy Manual relating to subordinate loans.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Did you
Aye,
wanna-
is that
did you wanna
the
comment on it?
are those the, is that it? It's only about a foot
You-
high.
Can you just kind of give us an update? It's like a big adjustment there. Whoa.
I decided it was time to bring a little show and tell. We get a CHIP grant about every 2, sometimes 3 years to help the housing stock in Lorain County, and we do that by making improvements for health and safety concerns and place low-income, income-qualified, low and moderate-income families into those houses. The goal of the CHIP program is to stabilize the value of housing in a neighborhood and put people in otherwise vacant houses. We have recently, and these are the policy manuals, we call it the PPM, the policy manual for that grant that we have to administer. With the current housing market, it's not uncommon for people to be in that interest range on their original home mortgage loan of 7 3/4 to over 10%. We're finding that some banks are now loaning, and we have people that are coming to us with a possibility to refinance below 5%, which would considerably cut their mortgage payments. Now, one of our goals is to make it so that low and moderate income family members can stay in those houses and keep them up and everything. There is a process in this manual that tells us when and how we go about subordinating a loan because we place a lien on the property. We will spend up to $35,000 to take care of lead-based paint if there is, and children under the age of 10, and we'll also take care of the health and safety issues. Our problem right now is loans were taken out when houses were in this $69,000, $70,000 range typically that we deal with, and the last 2 or 3 subordination requests we come in, they will be cutting by about 40% their mortgage payments with the reduced interest rate, but the house now with the new appraisal is not worth $65,000, it's worth about $51,000. To refinance, it would violate the subordination policy, and it would put them upside down, or they would owe more than what the house presently is worth. The problem that we see is every time we give a loan, every year that we remove 17% of our loan for every year that they live in that structure. The last 15% after 5 years is always a lien, 0% interest with that house, and we're paid off that last 15% of our money at the time of transfer or sale of the property. Well, we have people that have been there 2 or 3 years, want to refinance, are going to be in better position, but when you throw our amount, if they were to sell today or tomorrow after the loan goes through, it puts them upside down. They may owe $59,000 on a $51,000 house. So what we've been talking with the state and others, and what we've been asked to do is to go ahead and waive the subordination requirements as they exist in here, submit a new one which basically says on a case-by-case basis, we will get all of the information, the existing loan payments, the existing amount that they owe, the proposed rates, the proposed amounts. We need to make sure that they're not taking any cash out of the deal. They're not refinancing new debt. It's only existing debt. So there's a lot of precautions that we have to look for in those deals. And if it makes sense, then at that point, assuming that we will improve our loan position or remain the same, then we subordinate that loan. A typical case is they may owe $59,000 including us. The house is worth $51,000 or $50,000. Once the bank is paid off the $39,000 that truly is being refinanced on the house, then we will add our 15% at the end. We're still in an acceptable position. That's when we're going to subordinate. Now, in theory, we can have second position. They could leave after 4 years and owe us greater than 15%, and we may not be made whole. But the state said that given this market and climate, they're asking counties across that deal with this CHIP program to make these adjustments. So I know that was a little longer than we liked, but that's what we're asking the commissioners to authorize us to do, is to waive that subordination policy.
Good information, Rod.
Times are tough and things are changing, and we have to accommodate those changes sometimes.
Anything further? Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
All right, EMA, approve and enter an agreement with Lorain County Local Emergency Planning Committee effective May 21st, 2009 through May 20th, 2012, in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 3750.04E4, to include serving as Emergency Information Coordinator, prepare and update hazardous materials emergency response plan, assist with scheduling, develop and conduct exercises, investigate alleged violations, coordinate field visits, receive reports, maintain all required forms, submit annual CERT grant and record keeping. Primary use of the CERT grant regarding first partial salary in the amount of 40% for emergency management specialist, information coordinator for hazardous material compliance officer to the general fund.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Is this somebody that we're looking for, or somebody in-house that's going to handle this for EMA?
The Homeland Security?
Yes.
Really what's changing here is the percentage is increasing, number one, okay? So we up that, and the Emergency Information Coordinator is, I think that's Mr. Kelly, okay? I think that's what his title is underneath this. So I don't think there's no new hiring going on here.
Okay, so
It's just a revisiting of the percentage of who pays what. We're trying to cover a little bit of shortage over at EMA, because we took a reduction over there also. So this contract expired, and we just needed to put a new one in place. So you're not going to see any new bodies or personnel.
okay.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
I think Ted
That's
seconded
it.
that.
Did you have a
motion.
question?
No.
No.
Oh,
She just
okay,
called
Mr.
Ms. Blair for a
Kayla.
second.
Oh.
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under
Can I-
Job and Family?
Just one second, just want to back up. Also, the hazardous material compliance officer is something we've had for a number of years. And that's one of the issues we'll be addressing in our executive session, because it's vacant right now.
Under Job and Family, authorized purchase of service agreement for Royce Security Services Cleveland for security services for state fiscal year 2010, effective July 1st, 2009 through June 30th, 2010, at a cost not to exceed $26,000. Authorize the director to execute on behalf of the board with prosecutors approve as to form.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Approve and enter an agreement with Speedway Super America LLC on for purchase of prepaid fuel cards using TANA funds in the amount not to exceed $700,000. Authorized director to execute on behalf of the board with prosecutors approval as to form.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Reject all bids received on May 4th and instruct the clerk to re-advertise for bids for non-emergency medical transportation. Published in the Chronicle on May 26th and June 2nd, and to be open at 2 p.m. on June 9th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under Children's Services, approve and enter into a sub-grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services for fiscal year 2010-2011.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under the engineer, approve an amendment to agreement with K. McCartney and Associates Mansfield for the Colorado Avenue project and Village of this should be Sheffield, in the amount of $482,000 to proceed with Part 7 construction administration. This will be paid directly by ODOT, either as federal stimulus funds and or other federal funds.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under the sheriff, approve and enter in a maintenance agreement in the amount of $748.80 with SunGuard for the MTDs in the patrol vehicles effective May 1st, 2009 through April 30th, 2010 to be paid from the contract services account.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County
I
Administrator?
think we
You
should
ready
go
to
on
do
to the
this?
presentation, then we'll do our reports. Is that okay with everyone?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. My name is Richard Enty. I'm the Interim Director of Lorain County Transit, and I'm going to give a presentation about proposed service cuts. I want to first thank the Commissioners for their continued support of Lorain County Transit and apologize for last week's mishap. I didn't fully understand the process and advertised the service cuts as approved. They are definitely not approved. They are proposed. What I'm going to talk about today is the proposed service cuts that were presented last year and for which public hearings were held. And I'm also going to talk about a little bit about some of the alternatives that staff is looking at as a request of the board and also the public. We've heard a lot from the public about the published reduction. So you're going to hear about that today. But before I get started, I would like to introduce Mrs. Sandra Perry, who is the General Manager for First Transit, our new service provider. She comes to us with close to 30 years of experience from other transit systems of our size, mostly in New York. And I really think that the positive things you've seen has been because of her leadership and her company. First Transit sent dozens and dozens of people here to help ease the very quick transition that we had to do in about a 3-week period. And what I found out from the other staff who've been around a long time over at the transit office, Ms. Perry is very, very highly regarded. So I think we're very fortunate to have her. Look forward to working with her again. Again, just to very briefly go over why do we need to make service cuts. Again, for a long time, the federal government and the state government have begun to reduce their funding of transit, and that has trickled down to the counties as well as the transit systems. All the transit systems in Ohio and across the country are pretty much in the same situation. Even those with dedicated funding sources, like in Cuyahoga County, are also hurting and will be making cuts. Of course, this is also a reflection of the poor global economy that we're all facing. A lot of people are out of work. We're seeing record unemployment rates. So as a result, we're seeing declining ridership. For example, comparing the first quarter of this year to the first quarter of last year, we've seen a 13% drop in LCT ridership. So again, people can't go to work, they can't shop. So we're seeing that on our buses. Again, there's ever-increasing costs. We do have an increase in our cost of the new contract. I believe we are getting good value for it, but again, that's just the way that business happens. These cuts proposed last year were going to be implemented, but they were forestalled because of a special one-time cash infusion. The Ohio Public Transit Association and Joe Calabrese from RTA have been leaning, as you may know, Commissioner Blair, have been leaning a lot on the governor to try and get additional help for transit on a regular basis. There's actually a bill that passed through the Senate and is now going through the House that will hopefully do that, but that money will not come here for many months. So it's not likely that there's going to be any help again this year, so we need to move forward. This chart shows the budget situation. At the current rate of spending, we're going to, excuse me, we're going to see about an $880,000 hole in the budget by the end of the year. And we obviously can't have that even with the help from the commissioners. So we've got to make changes. This plan was developed last year, but it was updated this year by LCT and budget staff. This particular chart is very detailed, but it goes through the process of basically reducing service across the board, kind of on a fairly equitable approach. It may not be what's typically done in the transit industry, but basically it took hours of service from basically all of the routes almost on an equal basis. It does propose eliminating some services, including Sunday service, but that was the approach that was taken. In order to reduce service by about 1/5, about 20%, we need to reduce our service hours by about 20,000 in order to plug the hole in the budget. This is the current service map. I'm going to go very quickly through these routes and talk about their rank, the passengers per hour, because productivity is a very important thing. Route 1, the 208 ridership is about 63,000. Overall ranked number 3 of all the routes that operated by LCT and carries about 10.1 passengers per hour. Serves the Meridian Plaza, Lorain Metropolitan Housing Authority, facilities at Lakeview Plaza, South Central Lorain, International Plaza, Homewood Drive, City Hall, Lorain Police Department, and Social Security Administration. Again, the calls that we're getting from people about some of these reductions are about not being able to get to these locations. The proposed savings would be would result in 2 hours per weekday and about 9 hours on Sundays, cutting the service completely. Route 2 is the #1 ranked route, carrying over 123,000 riders in 208, 18.2 passengers per hour. The service span would change from 5 to 10 p.m. and end earlier, basically eliminating 3 of the last north and southbound trips every day. So the service would end at 7 p.m. instead. Savings of about 3 hours per weekday, and Sundays eliminating all Sunday service again. Again, Meridian Plaza, Broadway Avenue, St. Joseph Community Center, the VA Clinic, Kennedy Plaza, Haven Center, Whittier School, and Southview High School. Route 3 serves transportation, it's the only transportation from Sheffield and Sheffield Lake to other areas around the county: Meridian Plaza, Lorain Metropolitan Housing Authority, Colorado Industrial Park, Shoreway Shopping Center, Shell Cove Park, Sheffield Crossings, Lorain Community College, and Walmart upon request. The savings here would be somewhere in the order of 7 hours per weekday. Route 11 is ranked 11 out of 18. It carries about 4.4 passengers per hour and about 21,000 passengers per year. It's one of the lower producing routes. The proposed cuts would be about 2 hours per weekday. This serves the RTA connection, Lake Ridge Academy, and is the only transportation right now out of North Ridgeville. Route 21 is ranked #7, carrying about 57,000 riders per year, or about 4.8 passengers per hour. It serves Har Plaza, Elyria City Health Department, Riverview Plaza, Lorain County Justice Center, Lorain County Administration Building, downtown Elyria High School, the LCT Park and Ride Lot, Concord Manor, Oberlin College, downtown Oberlin, Walmart, downtown Wellington, Wellington Public Library, and the Oberlin Industrial Park upon request. And the cuts here would be about 10 hours per weekday and 7.25 hours for Sundays. But of course, with a route like this, you will lose a lot more passengers by cutting a similar number of hours. Route 31, 62,000 riders per year, ranked #4, about 12.1 passengers per hour. Savings of 3 hours per weekday. I'm not going to continue reading all this to try and save a little bit of time. Route 33, Cleveland Hopkins Airport Express, is ranked 13 out of 18, about 3.9 passengers per hour, almost 12,000 riders per year. Savings of about 13 hours per weekday, 2 hours on Sundays, and 11.5 hours, 2 hours per Saturday, 11.5 hours on Sunday. The proposal was to cut this route completely. Route 41, again ranked #8, 51,000 riders, 7.8 passengers per hour, 2.5 hours savings per weekday, and about 8.5 hours savings per Sunday. Route 42, ranked 15th, savings of 2.5 hours per weekday, 7 hours per Sunday. Again, so pretty much across the board, these are all similar types of reductions. The 70 Westlake Express is probably the least productive. It is number 18, 2.3 passengers per hour, about 4,600 riders per year. Again, savings of 5.5 hours per weekday. The dial rides were not proposed to be changed at all. I thought I would include them here. Actually, I'm sorry, there were reductions in the dial ride. It only carries 1.3 passengers per hour, and there are a lot of reasons for that. We can discuss that if you would like to. Proposed again eliminating all Sunday service, 8.3 hours. The community connectors were not proposed for changes. They ranked 14th, 16th, and 17th. In summary, again, at the current rate, we'll spend over $880,000 more than what we were budgeted. Staff initially proposed 11,910 hours in service cuts effective June 1. That obviously is a big, big cut. It's very difficult for us to support our community if we do that. The alternatives, if there are no new revenues, delay cuts, but at that risk, we would have to make deeper cuts a little later. And in that instance, we need to take about 1,678 additional hours every month on average for every month that we don't make cuts. Public feedback, again, was pretty fast and furious. Again, thanks to the newspapers for airing these issues. Big things that we heard, Lorain County Transit is the only means of transportation for a lot of people. I heard a lot of personal stories of people who are trying to improve themselves by, for example, going to college, ending some services at 7 o'clock, and it completely prevents them from being able to go to college in the evenings and get an education. So very touching. It's very difficult to listen to these things. Basic trips, again, work, medical, school, and shopping are the types of trips that are affected. And we even heard from employers as well as colleges that they lose workers, that hurts their business. So the cuts would be very significant. There are some alternatives that might be considered by the board. Could approach the municipalities. Again, this is not a new idea. The municipalities had a windfall several years ago. It made it difficult for the county to do its business, but the municipalities got some additional funds. Perhaps they'd be willing to support that service. In fact, Oberlin, City of Oberlin has even opened some discussions about doing that. Restructuring the dial-a-ride and the paratransit service to operate more as a paratransit service, there could be some significant savings there. Again, we have that 1.5 persons per hour roughly. Low productivity, we could improve that by restructuring that. We could accelerate the next
Can you expand on what a paratransit service actually is?
Well, the law requires the paratransit to be operated for people who cannot ride the fixed route service at all. And typically, the paratransit service will operate within 3/4 of a mile of a fixed route service. That's the law. Lorain County Transit's paratransit / dial-a-ride also carries senior citizens. And my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sandra, it does operate far beyond the 3/4 of a mile boundaries. So it really does operate a lot like a cab service. So we're not as effective as a result of that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, Rich, before we go any further with the question,
Yes.
do you have a savings amount by going to the paratransit, what it would save us?
No, we have not analyzed that.
We have not analyzed that?
No.
Okay. Because I don't believe any of us are happy with these cuts the way they're proposed, so that's why we're asking the questions and doing this out here, so, okay, go ahead.
Okay. Again, one strategy, again, responding to some things that we've heard from this board and from the public is make some service reductions right away, as soon as we can to June 1st. Again, start to plug the hole, but analyze and make some more effective cuts that don't hurt the customers quite as much as soon as we can. Some of these options for trying to make the cuts less harmful would be still eliminating all Sunday service, but eliminating the least productive routes. Again, taking the approach that the typical transit planning, service planning approach is to look at your least productive routes and remove some of those. You also could save money by not renewing the RTA contract, which has been paid through September 1st. That's the 55F that runs into Lorain County. Again, it's carries about 5 passengers per trip, very low productivity on that particular route. Again, as I mentioned before, reevaluate the dial-a-ride service and then modify other routes based on productivity. Again, before making any of these types of changes, we would hold public hearings and return to this board for its feedback and direction. At that point, any questions or further discussion?
All kinds.
Ready?
I know some discussions you and I had, because without the public hearings and everything, we need to go through at least starting plugging the gap. I would assume killing all the Sunday service at this point would be part of it because it's part of the original proposal.
Yes, it was.
I think what we need to explain is if we can make any of the cuts that were advertised, anything other than that, we're going to have additional public hearings. So Sunday
Correct.
service is one of those things that we could cut today, or June 1st, actually, if we wanted.
Correct.
But other things, if we decide to make other changes than what was proposed last year, we would have to have additional public hearings on the matter.
How about the airport run? I mean, that's very low. It ranks near the bottom.
Yeah, I think our
Ranks
staff,
13th.
yeah, we received probably 2 calls about that. Wasn't a large number of people.
And that is part of the cuts,
Yes, it is.
proposed cuts. Now that would still, because I know Oberlin College uses a lot of that route.
They do, but what they've done for the first time or in a long time is they've actually begun to hire a service to operate their own. It's a slightly higher quality service because it's Brecksville Road Transit. Gives the students a lot more room to put their luggage on, and they will operate that at the end of the break. So there would be access to the airport for them during those periods.
And what kind of monetary hit will we take from Oberlin College if we discontinue that service? I know they subsidize to a degree.
Well, that, again, when they implemented that service, they were going to reduce what they were giving to LCT. They originally were giving LCT about $50,000 a year. That was going to be cut more than half.
Okay, so it was a cut we were expecting then.
Yes.
Okay. But that would save us somewhere in the range of, what's that cost us totally? 338, if we killed the red hours of cut. What numbers were that? Would that run per day? See, on the proposal here, proposed service cuts, Rich, if you can go to 33 for me. That's running Monday through Friday, only 2 hours?
That was the proposal, yeah.
Okay, how many hours does it run currently?
It runs, let's see, total of 3,422 hours.
Times 40, 42, whatever.
Yes.
Okay, so about 150,000 if we were to discontinue the route in savings.
Which route are you talking about?
33, the airport route.
Okay.
Commissioner.
150?
Somewhere around $150,000. Does that make sense, Sandra? I mean, that takes, 20% of our hits there alone, correct? Out of
Yeah.
800,000?
Yes.
It looks like the short-term alternatives, talking about the Sunday service, routes 33 and 70. And then the airport one that you're talking about gets us halfway there at $442,000 savings.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're getting closer without having to affect all the more frequently used routes, passengers.
Right, I mean, that's what we're looking at. As we look at the numbers and our discussions the other day, Rich, when you and I were talking, was to effectively do it across the board is hitting, it's not efficient with the amount of riders you have.
Right.
Or you didn't do these original proposed cuts. I mean, you came in after the fact, so.
Yes.
I think that's what the board here is trying to decide, have the least amount of effect on ridership but still maintain our budget, because we don't have any more. And I proposed, I think it goes back almost a year and a half, going back to the cities after they got the increased local government funding, and we haven't worked that out as of yet, because they're all having shortfalls also. But the money that was redistributed through the alternative formula is why we can't fund transit anymore, so.
Let me correct myself. I actually did calculate that cost for, I'm sorry, the hours for the 70 and the 33. So that total of 3,422 hours is for those two together.
It's for those two together, the
Those two
70 and the
together.
30, 34, 22, 40.
Oh, so I gotta knock 150 off that 442 then.
Right, I'm sorry.
So 292, 3.
So all Sunday service, the 70 and the 33. The airport run, the run to Westlake and Sunday service is about 300,000 in savings?
Right,
Is that close, Rich? I
Yes, it
don't want to
is.
say something here that isn't right.
that's correct.
The other thing that was discussed was the fact that these numbers are 2008 numbers for ridership. You said it's gone down in the first quarter.
Yes.
So
Yes,
this is
Commissioner.
kind of old data. What we'd like to do is have what we call RSVP, or maybe some of the kids that are going to be utilizing the stimulus money for summer program money for jobs, is to ride the bus, find out, you know, where these people are riding and what types of reasons. Is it work? Is it medical? Is it schooling, shopping? To try to get a better handle on who's riding the buses and what the needs are out there. So if we do make other changes, like I said earlier, we will have to have public hearings on the matter other than what was originally proposed last year.
Commissioner, I think these numbers are actually from the last time an overall survey was done was in 2006 or 2007. I think they were older than 2008.
Oh, is it really?
No, I think these numbers are either 2007 or 2008, based on what you get from the tickets and report to the federal government quarterly.
Is it 2007 or
Is it-
2008?
They're 2008.
2008?
This isn't the data that we surveyed using RSVP for
No.
actual, okay.
No,
My
that was
computer.
04.
Okay. All right, getting a little long in the tooth here. I just wanted to make sure I actually knew. I thought it was older than that. Okay.
So what can we do today?
I think
Cut
we can
Sunday?
cut Sundays. Service as of, would that be June 1st?
June 1st.
As close to June 1st as we can, because Sandra has to actually prepare the driver cuts, the run cuts.
How much job loss are we looking at, Sandra?
At the present time, if we do the Sunday, the 33 and the 70, we will have to lay off 5 drivers, and there'll be some hour cuts.
We may need you to come up to the microphone,
Oh,
Hal.
sorry.
No, it's all right, Sandra.
Why don't you use the other microphone there?
With the present cuts that you're talking about, Sunday, 33 and 70, that would eliminate 5 drivers and cut some hours in the office and maintenance department. So it's 5 individuals that we're talking about presently.
Okay, and how about a Sunday across the board?
That's including that.
Okay.
Do we want to look at the 60,000 for, oh, that is, that's the RTA, that's the one you're talking about, that goes to the airport for 60,200,
No, that's the agreement to,
Avon Lake?
To
The
bring the
West
55 in, extended 55 into Avon.
that's what we paid RTA, Greater Cleveland
Right.
RTA, come into Lorain County for the park and ride at Route 83, correct?
Right.
The one we fought to keep last year.
Right, and that
Right.
was
We
paid for
have-
by part of that one-time
The
money.
stimulus.
So it is paid through September.
We have
So we don't need to
so-called
cut that
agreement.
until look at that
Well,
later
actually-
on in the year?
No, actually,
There's no
Commissioner,
cut.
we need to make a decision pretty quick on that because we have a long lead time on notification with RTA. So I believe we almost have to notify them about 3 months out.
Right.
With regard to ending that service.
Okay.
Is that an agreement?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
Okay, then does that have to be part of a public hearing as well?
No, it does not.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's by contract. Question, though, that will not get any additional savings. What we need just means less expense, correct?
Yes.
Well, we don't have the money to pay for that contract outside of getting additional support from the state.
Correct. But I'm saying it won't be it won't save off the 880,000 number we're trying to save.
No, I
It
wish-
means,
no,
less expenditure come September, so go for notification. Do we need to, we
Just
don't
to-
need to,
Yeah, you just need to, I entered into the contract with Mr. Calabrese over at RT. I just need authority to terminate the contract once the funding has been exhausted that we received last year.
What form do you want that in? A motion?
Well, it'll come, we can put it all in the whole thing here. I'd like to get a resolution authorizing these changes to us, while not specifically required to do the changes, it'll just clarify the board's position.
Okay. What else can we do today?
Well, as far as the dial-a-ride, how long before you would have numbers back if we did the paratransit, as far as savings go for that?
I'd have to turn to Ms. Perry about that one. How long do you think it would take us to?
It would take us a while to, first we'd have to find out how many of those individuals are truly just paratransit riders and how many are not. And I think James can help us with that because he does an application for the ADA individuals. Once we have that, I think we could work pretty quickly.
The
Yeah.
discussion we had when we were information sharing the other day, the members of the board concerned how many trips we made outside the three-quarter mile
Yes.
requirement under the FTA regulations. That should be able to be captured within an hour or two, right? I mean, we know how many are outside the fixed route by more than three-quarters of a mile. I don't know that we were talking about just the ADA qualified or the senior qualified. We were simply talking about what the cost-benefit analysis savings would be if we limited ourselves to paratransit within three-quarters of a mile of fixed route as required by the FTA rather than universal dial-a-ride. So those numbers should come quicker than analyzing specific eligibility criteria. And I kind of thought we would have that today, so maybe it was a misunderstanding of what data we were trying to capture. Ron, am I correctly stating that? You were in that meeting.
I'm kind of lost at this point, because I didn't get away from the questions we were asking here today. That's why Go
Right.
ahead, help Ron.
My understanding was, yes, that's what we're supposed to get, but it wasn't possible to get it by today.
Right.
Okay.
It's a little bit more involved than my optimistic administrator thinks.
Well,
I
well,
thought
but
it was
what-
going to take a while based on what they talked about, because we have the senior population, disabled population use dial-ride. And I had a question after we left there. Now, is that point-to-point from home to doctor's office? Is it from home to closest fixed route that has handicap accessibility?
Well, that's connector service. It's two different,
Under the dial-ride, it still falls under the connector service?
no, there's two different programs. So
Right,
you
that's
have-
what I thought.
We usually do not use connector service for people that are eligible for dial-a-ride. The
That's
connector
correct.
service actually is when we don't have a fixed route serving an area, but we do have a fixed route nearby. We had them call for the connector service that runs through there. We pick them up and we bring them to a fixed route. We do, that's what they're, we used to go on up in Avon Lake before RTA was
But
over
that
there.
figures the disabled
No.
and the senior population. I was asking-
Anybody can ride the connector service. It's two different programs.
I understand. I'm going back to dial-a-ride. Your question, the dial-a-ride service, if you lived outside the three-quarter of a mile, and we picked you up with dial-a-ride, and you were still able, but you fell underneath the senior status or disabled, did we run them right to their doctor appointment? Or we didn't take them to the nearest fixed route that had handicap service and they took the fixed route?
correct.
They didn't.
Once they're on
It
the
was point to point.
not.
Right.
Okay, all right. That's what I was just checking. I didn't ask that question the other day. I wanted to, and
You know, that may be an alternative, Commissioner. I mean, that may be something that you may consider after you get your numbers for the changes.
Right.
Although I will tell you, especially with our challenge riders, getting them into vehicles and out of vehicles is time consuming. So
Okay.
once they're being transported, it usually is more cost effective to continue to transport them rather than to try to disembark them and re-embark them on another vehicle.
because it hurts the pulse system making times and
Again,
otherwise.
it's time consuming.
Okay, that was my question. I
Okay.
didn't ask when I was there the other day, so I wanted to. So far, what are we
Okay, so we
doing?
need more information on dial-ride.
Correct.
Okay.
And Commissioners, you know, if I misunderstood the other day's conversation, I apologize, but My concern is, the first thing we need to check is if we're making cuts in paratransit, do we have to hold the public hearings before you authorize those cuts? Now, if it's outside the service area, we may not, but we're checking into that too, so that we make sure that we've appropriately notified the public. We also, I think, talked, it wasn't at 41 and 43, combining and reconsolidating.
Right.
Consolidating
Do we have to
those.
do that under the public hearing
No,
process?
I think that, Rich, have you ever an opportunity to see if we can dogleg, I think it was 41 out to
Yes, we did,
CHP?
and I'll let Ms. Perry speak to that one as well, because her staff analyzed that there may not be some savings here.
Right. Well, as the current system is run, the 41 and the 42 alternate time-wise. So 1 hour it's the Route 41, the next hour it's the Route 42. If you eliminate the Route 42 and add some of that service onto the 43, your vehicle is still out the same number of hours and you have less service.
You know, that's something I think we need to know. That's really good. That's good information, because I had heard back when Tom was here, that we were doing something like that, running one bus but servicing
Yes.
2 routes at
That's
different
correct.
times. Do we have other routes that are serviced like that, or is that the only one?
I believe that's the only one.
Okay, so obviously, we're not going to save any time on the rolling
No.
stock, and the driver's going to be out there. They're just going to be deadheaded longer somewhere.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so that
That makes a big difference.
it makes a big difference in the decision-making. We didn't know that the other day when we were discussing these things.
Well, Jim, when you're going back to if we have to have, I would just prefer to have the public hearings on all the next set of proposed cuts. I
Okay.
mean, that's probably fair to everyone else. I mean, the board agree, or?
We need to move pretty quick.
Right.
Anything that we don't save today will, week by week, month by month, will amplify the depth of the cuts, because we have to get to that 880 figure, 440,000 locally. So, we need to get those public hearings scheduled, get out there and get back in here with a swiftness, because I don't know how deep we can continue to go if we don't get them quickly.
Was the fare increase part of the advertisement?
The fare increase was good for 5 years. I thought we had a 5-year resolution. It's good through 2011.
It is.
Yes, but I think that we should revisit that also at the public hearing, because I think it's soft, given the state of what we're paying right now. When we did the fare increase, it didn't really take into consideration some of the, well, definitely didn't take into consideration the great amount of increase we saw in fuel just a year ago. While things have leveled off a bit, I noticed on the way in today, fuel has again risen about 25%. Very quickly within the last few weeks. And also, when we redid our contract, we had additional costs that we did not put into that fee structure, because we thought we would do the renewals under our contract. But given that almost everybody that had a contract with Transit was in the red, because they didn't anticipate the fuel cost either, those renewals just didn't come, and we had to pay additional dollars for services. So I think that we should probably update that 5-year resolution at the same time. Bless you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
So I would suggest that we do both. And I think, Commissioner Kayla, you suggested just, pretty much killing 2 birds with 1 stone by doing that.
Right, I prefer, why beat that horse twice,
Okay.
or beat the commissioners twice? Let's beat us just once.
I think 2 or 3 times is nice.
I thought so.
Beating for each.
What else can we do, Rich, under the proposed cuts? We're getting rid of all Sundays.
Right.
Is that agreed?
Yes.
Cutting the RTA service in September. Getting rid of the airport route. Getting rid of the Westlake route, the 33 and the 70.
Okay, can we do that today?
It's all under the proposed cuts. I didn't know
It
if there's
is.
anything
Yes.
else we could cut.
Okay.
Right. That's all that would make sense right now to do without getting major harm.
Okay.
What about so we're not going to address the limiting of the hours on any of the other routes, or? I understand we're reducing route service in those areas, but we've also had a few proposals to reduce some of the hours on other routes. Do you want to go back and look at that before you make a decision on those?
I think we should. I think we should analyze the data again with RSVP and maybe the kids'
Well,
summer program.
That kind of data collection, Commissioner, we won't have that before we need to make additional service reductions. I believe that the best analysis of obtaining that data and then being able to qualify it will probably be sometime August or September, because by the time we have everybody on the buses and then they ride for a few weeks and then we correlate the data, it's not going to come in time for the cuts that we will need to be able to balance the budget.
Well, I'm not comfortable cutting the 2-hour service out of the heaviest used routes in the evening. That kills, I spoke the other day, people getting to retail, restaurant work, college in the evening, as Rich had brought up. I'm not, as I looked at it, I'd say, you know, if we've got to cut, take whatever we need out of the bottom third.
Yes.
I mean, to affect 124,000 riders and take the same additional cuts out of something that gets 6,200 riders, time-wise, which is the same savings, I think is foolish.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, Commissioner.
I think that's the focus we were talking about, was eliminating the least used routes as opposed to cutting the service hours.
One of the things I did, and Ron and Rich did discuss with various commissioners, was not having any weekend service at all. I think that one of the things that we need to look at with regard to the public hearings is a reduction in weekend service, not just for Sunday, but for the entire weekend. You know, a lot of people are going to get very, very upset about some of the things we're saying here, but we simply don't have the money. And for those folks that don't know, and it needs to be said here by somebody, without a sales tax increase come November, this is only the beginning, because the board is still supporting transit with a $500,000 a year stipend from the general fund that it's not obligated to do. It's not a mandatory expenditure of funds. And the sad part is that the minimum amount of money we bring back from the FTA from your support is a match of 1-for-1. So for when we do $440,000 in cuts with local monies that are not available, we lose $440,000 of federal dollars that are not being spent here. On top of that, the price could be more because our maintenance money is 80-20 money. So some of that would probably be on maintenance because we'd have increased rolling stock on the road. So the number is probably a little higher than just the 440 match. It could be, you know, around 600,000 of federal dollars, not stimulating our economy here because we don't have a dedicated revenue stream for transit. And quite frankly, without some additional revenue support from the taxpayers in November, I don't know how this board's going to be even able to provide the $500,000 that it does now next year.
Can I make a point, though? Nowhere on the proposed service cuts does it say eliminating Saturday service. It's all days of service, Monday through Friday and Sunday. I don't think we can cut those.
No, I was indicating we should do that at the public hearing, Commissioner.
Oh, okay, all right, thanks. I couldn't find it in mine here.
I'm looking for a few suggestions from the boards
Okay.
of things. You know, when we do the public hearings, we have to indicate to them some of the proposed. It could be very broad-based, but I was looking for suggestions from the board of a tolerance level that you may agree to, so that we don't go out, have the public hearing, then have to come back and you're not satisfied, and then we go out again.
I understand.
Right.
Now, good point.
I think we need to look at that, and is there a way that you can find out how much of a cost savings it would be to eliminate Saturday and Sunday both?
Yes, we can, Madam
Okay.
President.
Well, I thought you agreed to
took
cut
care of
Sunday
Sunday.
today.
We already
Pardon me?
said
I
we're
agreed
gonna
you- I
eliminate
thought-
Sunday today.
I
I
thought you-
know.
okay.
I know, but just the combination plus all the cuts with Saturday, if that would get us to where we need to be.
You have a cost on the elimination of Sunday already, don't you?
Right,
Yes, we do.
but Saturday we don't.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be about the same hours, though, is what I'm getting to? Is Saturday and
No, I'm
Sunday
not sure
service
that it would
comparable?
be.
It is very much the same service, yes.
Okay, so
The same
times of
cost?
hours.
Yes.
Okay. So you're looking at 11, 23, 32, 44, 51, so it's about 75.
Well, Sunday's 88,000.
We have, on Saturday, we do run $2 rides, on Sunday, we only run one, so there would be additional
No, this isn't Sunday dial, right?
8 hours there, 8 or 9.
Oh,
That was already including the 88, so I backed that up. So
Oh.
75 or 76,000 would be Saturday service.
I'm sorry.
About $76,000 would be our Saturday service if it mirrored Sunday service.
Right.
Would we
Mirror,
cut out
yeah.
Saturday dial ride also then?
Yes.
Okay,
If
you
you
do
do
both.
not have the fixed route, you do not provide the dial-a-ride service.
Okay, so then, then it would be the 88, add another 88,000 in cuts. Can we hire a cab
Bless you.
company?
Well, You know, in some respects, sometimes that's a little less costly.
Or vouchers or something that people that would normally use dial-a-ride could,
Well, you know what, let me also, there's a couple things I know that I say here that the board already understands, but sometimes our constituents don't. There is no public transportation system that I'm aware of that is self-supporting, even with a dedicated revenue stream. They still count on us, I know that assistance.
there's some people that don't know what a dedicated revenue stream is. That means they have a tax dedicated for transit.
Well, levy.
Or
Usually it's a
levy.
levy.
Right.
Most of them are supported with a levy. Cuyahoga is supported with a 1% sales tax. They're supported with a 1% sales tax, and they still struggle. And their fares still don't cover all of their costs there. They bring in money from outside, and you can see that they were requesting assistance from the state. Very large system, but you know, public transportation is a social program that is shared by all. And when ridership's up, these subsidies become less. But right now, we don't have any convenient ridership in Lorain County, and as we reduce service, we have only the neediest of the needy riding public transportation. So those people you see there absolutely positively have zero alternative, and that's unfortunate. Any other suggestions on what you would like us to look at with regard to the public hearings? We're going to look at a revised fee schedule. We will look at elimination of Saturday service. We will look at some of the less utilized routes, possible elimination or reductions in those. And I'm not sure that that's going to completely get us where we need to for our cost savings. So as we'll put the team on it before we put the notice out to maybe throw a bigger net, but those are a few of the ideas from the commissioners. We'll come up with a few more and then bring them back so you have alternatives, not that you're locked into just one particular thing.
Can we look at those before you send those out for the bid?
Yes, you can, sir.
So where are we at, Commish?
Do you have what the
I have-
suggestions are?
Eliminate all Sunday, RTA in September, the airport, and the Westlake 33 and 70. Is that correct?
As of or about June 1st.
We can accomplish that by June 1st.
Now, we also had discussion, the 33, is that the one coming up from Wellington?
No, that's the
We also discussed, didn't we discuss eliminating the Wellington run?
Yes.
No, they were looking at cutting 4 hours out of it.
We talked about 21, I think it is, it goes down to Wellington, and whether we wanted to stop just at JBS or whether it needed to continue into Wellington, and we needed to get more information on the ridership on that southern leg.
Okay.
But we could do that for the
In the
next
public
Yeah,
hearing?
let's get that on
Okay.
the list for the next one.
Gotcha.
Because the 21, though, is still the 7th most populated route. That was the question, how populated is it from the JVS going south into Wellington? If we can cut that service back there. Because I'm assuming, David, and you're standing up there, so I'm sure you have things to say that Oberlin uses the buses a lot.
Did you want to make a comment, David?
Sometime,
Quickly?
please.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioners. David Ashenhurst, Oberlin. First, on behalf of the City of Oberlin, I can say only that when the local government funds first were taken from the county and given back to the city, our City Council and our public were prepared to hear from the county regarding things that were not possible any longer from the county level that we might be asked to participate in. We have never been asked. We've never been given a discussable proposition to say what we have consistently indicated our willingness to participate. We have indicated in general a willingness to talk about this, and we've never been asked to talk about it. Second, we had Mr. Enti before City Council. We had Mr. Twining and Mr. Enti to a couple of discussions in Oberlin with community members, and I would be hard-pressed to say that the idea of total elimination of the 33 was ever indicated as a possibility this quickly. I assure you, if you had, when the story hit the newspapers about the announcement of this, it was indicated as already something, you know, that the commissioners weren't aware of and wasn't supposed to be announced the way it did. I don't think Mr. Endes received phone calls on the elimination of the 33, because I think, at least in my neck of the woods, it was assumed that that was part of the mistake that was being broadcast about the certainty of these cuts. I think he'd get a lot more phone calls if we understood about it. Third, I'm certain that that what of this could be reversed if the sales tax passes, when the sales tax passes in November, ought to be clear somewhere in this discussion, because I'm sure, again, I would have a lot easier time marshaling support for a sales tax increase if people understood that the direction in which things were going, which is a cut in services. I mean, I understand why you can't keep them now. I understand why you have to make changes based on, well, a doomsday scenario or something like that. But I think people would be more willing to respond to some of these things if they had an idea that passage of a sales tax would allow some of this to come back. Fourth, I hope when the public hearings are held, going back to that budget slide and where $888,000, you know, in cuts has to come from, it looked to me like about $2.5 million was being spent on operations, but then another $1.5 million was being spent on vehicle operation costs and $700,000 on vehicle replacements. I think people understanding if there's a way of cutting, well, depends on partly where these funds are coming from and what the match requirements are,
Okay.
whether some of this can be done.
Yeah, David, let me help you before, and in fact, I think you're trying to be helpful, but you may be confusing. A lot of our dollars, and you started hitting on it, are specific for a certain purpose. We talked about this at length a few meetings, how we have money available for capital replacement. We haven't done capital replacement for a few years because we've been using the generous support of the Board of Commissioners to match operating dollars. But sooner or later, we have to replace rolling stock. And because we were able to position the funding last year using, I think it was some of the Ohio toll money that we received through NOACA, we got 100% funding for rolling stock replacement and capital replacement. So if we don't do it, we lose it. It's not a matter of did we choose to put money in operating pots or in, and that's what I'm trying to address for you.
Well, and all I'm trying to say is if we understand that all that 800,000 has to come out of money here, the part of the question is, does anything reduce the amount that we get? I mean, sort of where all this comes from, and does it all have to come out of operations?
No, but see, right now, there is required maintenance on all the rolling stock, and that's considerable. There's tire replacement, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So believe it or not, the minimum amount of money is in the maintenance cost. The replacement schedule is even if we get more money next year, if we don't improve our rolling stock, we're not going to be going anywhere anyway. All right, and I see the transit lady there just shaking her head. We're in pretty pitiful shape. So
we have the oldest fleet in the state of Ohio.
Oldest fleet, I think, in the country.
I'm just saying so that it's clear where that comes from and that things come out
let me
of
say it this way. We have maximized utilization of local dollars from the commissioners and fare box revenue to match the greatest potential of operating dollars possible without making that we have an unsafe fleet. And we were getting to the point last year where even if we had enough money to match to bring more money, we would not have been able to put more buses on the road. We were barely able to field enough buses to just service the minimum amount of routes that we had at this point because our rolling stock was in incredibly poor material condition. It has to be a good balancing act. I know people are going to look at that and say, well, defer maintenance, defer this, and put it into operation, keep the buses rolling. We cannot do that. We did juggle that for a while, and now we're paying some of the costs of doing that.
I guess what I'm asking is, if we reduce some of these services, do our grants get reduced some as well?
Well, absolutely. See, and that's what I was suggesting
Okay.
earlier. Every time we don't match, every time we reduce a local dollar, we actually reduce $2 because we don't bring FTA money here to Lorain County. So if the board has to reduce their $440,000 because we don't have the local support, and we should have made these reductions last year. Let me point out that we were slated to have to make the $500,000 reduction last year because the board was no longer able to provide $1 million worth of support for transit in the challenging climate that we found ourselves in. We got a pass last year when we were assisted from the state to various funding revenues. Now this year, when the board reduces it, it's $440,000 right now because we had some carry-in from last year with regard to the money we received. That means that the federal government will not match us $440,000 from FTA. It doesn't come to our community. And a lot of times the community doesn't understand that we need to spend some local money to bring back federal money, and they're paying federal taxes like everybody else. In order to get into that stream of revenue returning to a community, the community has to stand up and match that to bring it back home. And we're doing everything we can.
Okay. Well, and one last thing. I agree with Commissioner Kalo not to cut evenings completely. I saw one situation where they were advocating eliminating the last 3 northbound and southbound trips. I don't know what the savings are with eliminating 2 out of those 3, but if one could be preserved and people figured out which one it was that both works for First Transit and works for, people can adjust their schedules to, you know, stay a little longer where they are or leave a little earlier from where they are. But if you eliminate it completely after 6:30 or something like that, you really knock out a whole thing. So I do hope there's a way. I mean, I realize some hours you may knock out an hour, but not really knock out an hour of operation because you still have to have somebody there to run the next thing. So I just hope that's looked at in terms of how the reductions can be done creatively, and you know, running the shifts differently and moving people on different routes to keep some of those evening hours beyond that. Thanks.
Jeannie?
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Janine Donaldson. I'm the Executive Director of the Elyria YWCA, and we are the owners and operators of 3 homeless shelters here in Elyria, 1 in downtown Lorain. And the women who live with us, they greatly depend on a transit system, as well as the women who no longer live with us, and they're considered our alumni and are out in the community. We have basically taught them to plan their lives around the transit system. But I first want to just say to you that I empathize with you in the tough decisions that you're going to have to make fiscally, and I know you're just going to have to do what you have to do. And Mr. Cortez, you were correct in saying that the neediest of the needy right now is what's left using the transit line. So my thought this morning, wasn't planning on speaking to you, but my thought this morning is about moving forward in terms of what do we do in the future. Times aren't going to always be bad, I hope, but we also know that levies aren't, or people who need transit aren't exactly the population that helps to pass levies. And so when David was talking about the city of Oberlin, that they've not been asked to contribute, I'm just thinking, again, moving forward, maybe we need to put a task force together. I attended the regional meeting out at the community college on bringing the regions together. And I don't know if there's an opportunity to talk regionally about people contributing to the transit problem or the transit system. I also don't know how things like Murray Ridge or the Mental Health Board or the college, when they put their levies on the ballot, what the thought process there is, but maybe again, if a task force could bring these folks together and have a certain portion of their levies even designated, because again, these are the people that use the transit line, and if they could designate any of their dollars to transit, I think they can get levies passed a lot faster and easier than if you just had a levy strictly for transportation, because a lot of folks, they don't realize who's using the transit, and unfortunately the people who do utilize the transit don't come in mass and vote and protest and those kinds of things. So thank you, and again, I empathize with the decisions that you have to make.
Thank you, Janine.
Do we need a motion?
Well, I'd like to ask if we have a real broad-based outline of what our cost reductions were today that the board agreed to. Do you have a number? Have you been adding up those changes?
Sorry.
Has somebody done that, Ron?
Ted had it as close as anybody, but his wasn't.
Ted, how close were you on the number?
Two
We're already
I
down
don't
300
know.
grand,
About 400, I thought.
300,000, because we couldn't double it up.
So we're at about
About
300,000.
300,000 is cuts out of the 880.
Okay, so we still need
But we
to,
only have to cut 440.
no, ma'am, we
No.
need to cut
No.
880.
We have to cut 880.
I thought our cut was half
It is,
of
but we're
that.
taking total number cuts.
Right, we're doing, that's total number that Ted has and Lori has there, total reduction. So we're not even really halfway, we're about
Right.
35% right now.
Well, educate me why we have to do the whole cuts.
Because I speak in terms of 440,000 is the amount of money that if somebody today said, I want to support transit, how much would it cost not to do these cuts? It'd be 440,000. That's what we would need locally, 440,000. But because we don't have 440,000 locally, and that means we don't bring in 440,000 from the federal government, which necessitates $880,000 in cuts. So we're talking global numbers here, not just local cuts. So the global number right now is around 300,000, which sounds like about, I don't know, 35 or 40% of the way there.
Third of the way.
Third of the way. So we still need $580,000 worth of cuts, and we need to move swiftly. We're going to get them because the multiplier effect says that every month that slips by, that the amount of cuts gets 1/6 more critical, beginning June 1st.
I thought our figure was 440.
Sorry.
So am I. The advertisement, when the advertisement appeared, it called for cutting service completely on Route 43.
Okay.
I'm not advocating it, but, if you've just tasked me with finding 880,000 as opposed to half of that,
Well,
I think the 43, though, was the one that we were hoping we could combine with the
42.
42 or 41,
okay,
for additional cost savings.
I like what the commissioners say, bad guy Jim, good guy commissioners. Let me say this very, very strongly. We're going to be back with some of these same cuts because you're not going to find it in what you suggested already. Now, we'll go out there and have the public hearings and offer some additional alternatives, but that's going to take probably 6 to 8 weeks to facilitate that process. Rich, would you, that's on a pretty fast track, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we're already going to be at the end of June. That means the cuts are going to have to be, 1/6 deeper because we've lost one of the 6 months that we were counting on reductions in. And the things that we've talked about here are not going to be substantial enough, even if we go have the public hearings and we get some agreement to make up the shortfall of an additional $580,000. So you're going to be looking at some of these things, but they may be a little bit more drastic because we lost the whole month of June with our cost savings. I don't know if Ron or Rich wants to add to that.
You're right.
Well, then, the only other thing I think we can suggest is take the bottom few ridership, the ones that people use the least amount of, and cut those hours as suggested in the advertisement in the last public hearing. And see where that gets us. It should get us, we need to get as close as possible.
They didn't touch any of those, Commissioner.
What do you
They
mean?
didn't touch the bottom ones, they touched all the heavy ones. through the cuts. None of the connectors were touched.
Well, but we did discuss eliminating the connector.
We can't though, because that hasn't gone through the public hearing process.
Well, we're preparing for the public hearing that's going to come up. So
How much,
in that,
how
we
much
need to
connector service
consider
are
that.
we actually doing? Does somebody have a rough idea? I didn't think it really was functioning that well.
Yeah, I don't have any real numbers, but it's minimal.
22,000 trips, according to this.
Where?
Yeah, those three up.
We could add them all up, 4 of them actually, right?
I just added the three.
Oh, okay.
Amherst, Avon, and
Okay,
Oberlin.
that's the 3 connectors, all right.
That's what I was told.
Right, but are they full hours? Are they running the same hours as our normal transit on the connectors?
Yes.
That's 3 whole routes we would eliminate then. And how many hours in a standard day? 12? And we're gonna hear from Oberlin again, I'm sure.
You're gonna move Oberlin?
So would 12 hours a day be an average per connector run?
Yes.
So 36 hours a day times 42 bucks. 36, 42, about 14,000
Hours?
dollars. No, it's 36 hours a day for 3 connectors.
You can see why the heavily utilized routes were reduced somewhat, and on the ending of the day and a little bit on the beginning of the day, because that's where the big dollar savings are. Some of the other routes, you almost have to reduce them completely.
I understand that, but I
okay.
mean, when you're talking about, and I'll take the smallest route of Oberlin, 6,243 riders all year. Correct? Is that the
No.
ridership? 6,243.
Right here.
Right
This
here.
is Oberlin.
No, I said Amherst, the lowest of the routes.
Said Oberlin.
Amherst, the
I'm
lowest
sorry,
of the
pardon
routes,
me.
Commissioner.
I didn't hear
Um,
what you said. I thought you said
right.
something different.
That is, 1.5 riders per hour on a normal shift.
How about this? Why don't we get exact figures for what savings would be accomplished, and then give those cities, Amherst, Avon, and Oberlin, an opportunity to pay for the savings. David says Oberlin might be willing to pay for theirs, and if they are, we could continue the service.
I agree. No, I'm
And,
just-
well, it's a concept.
I
And we
agree.
can't do it today because we've not advertised for it.
Correct.
So it will give us some time to put some more collaboration together.
Excuse me, my name is Miss Mary Beth Evan. I have a question. If you're talking about cutting connectors, do you understand that if you cut the Avon connector, you are cutting that ridership? Those people will not be paying fares. You're also going to be cutting your ridership on like the Route 1 or the Route 2. People use that to go to work. So they're using Route 1, Route 2, Route 21 or something to get to the transfer point, and then they're using the Avon connector to get to the factory or restaurant that they work at. So you're eliminating costs because you're eliminating that run, but you're also eliminating revenue because people aren't going to be using the Route 1, 2, 21 or whatever to get to the transfer point.
It's linear, and you're correct. And Mary Beth, I think I got an email from you, so welcome. I think we told you we were doing this today, so were you the lady that sent me the email?
My supervisor did.
Okay. So I'm glad you got the opportunity to come up today. And some of that is kind of factored in, that some of the ridership will fall off.
A lot.
Well, unfortunately, we're still searching for, you can see from sitting here, we're still searching for several hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I understand that.
The connector service actually, last time I looked, was a bit expensive to run. You're shaking your head yes again. You may want to come to the podium. It's an expensive service. When the connector service was put out there, it was to try to serve all of Lorain County. We didn't have enough numbers to justify its own bus routing, so they put the connector on to try to bring them to some of the services we had. I'm afraid that when we get all said and done here, we're only going to be servicing the core population groups Lorain County where the most folks are living, and that's probably going to be more or less Lorain area, because it's the only way we're going to be able to afford to keep transit running because of the density of the population. I mean, I can see that direction coming more and more when we've had these talks over the last few weeks.
Addressing the connector route, it is a combination almost of a fixed route dial ride type system. An individual needs to make a reservation or calls our office and says, I'd like to be picked up on the connector at such and such a time, and therefore the bus is could be just idle for many hours of the day. And if you look at the productivity on those routes, it's probably 1 to 2 passengers an hour, if that, because many of the time the bus is idle. There's no one called to make the appointment.
Right now, and we're costing us about $42 an hour right now
Yes.
for a rolling hour
Yes.
or an idle hour. And for the few people that we're picking up, it would be less costly to give them cab fare.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's why I brought that up earlier.
Yeah.
Can we
Yeah.
hire a cab?
So, I understand the critical need, and I understand that, people rely upon this, and I want to, thank Janine for pointing out how difficult these decisions will be. We'll go out, we'll look for some more of this, but I keep putting all this out there because it's going to be hard to find another $500,000 in these things, and I don't think not touching some of those routes that are heavily utilized is going to be possible. It's probably going to have to be a bifurcated process. Is there any additional questions by the board, or should we just?
No.
Can you pass a resolution authorizing the changes that you've agreed to, and?
Can we set the public hearings up today?
Well,
Or
well,
when?
we can go ahead and make those announcements without a resolution to do that.
Okay.
So I'm going to work with Rich and Ron this afternoon to be out there as early as possible, but we will bring back some of the proposed discussion points at those public hearings to the board per Commissioner Kalo's request. And if you have any additional ideas before we do publish the notice, I would really, really appreciate if you would send them to us. Remember, the bigger the net, the more options you have at the end of the day.
Well, and that could be eliminating all Lorain County transit, and then we'll negotiate it down from there on what we can afford. Not that I want to, but I mean, if you cast the biggest net.
I'm not quite sure if they wouldn't take exception that really didn't qualify as a.
Always better to ask forgiveness than permission.
That's not a net, that's like a big hole.
Well,
I would make a motion to make the changes that we discussed. Do I have to name them, or do you
So
want?
I was gonna say, as of June 1st, all Sunday service, the RTA contract in September, the airport, the Westlake 33 and 70. Is that
Second.
correct? Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Okay, I think we're concluded. We have a lot of work ahead of us, so Ron and Rich, I'll probably need to see you guys this afternoon to get a revised plan, okay, if that's possible.
Okay, down to reports.
Yeah, well, Mr. Cortez?
Did you do the reading? Oh, yeah.
No, we're on
Okay.
Jim.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard you. I was just looking out here for a moment. Sorry,
You did
Madam
that,
Clerk.
huh?
I didn't fall asleep.
No, she asked me if we were doing something else, and I said no, so.
How you doing, Jeff? I'd like to let the board know that Jeff Green is leaving us.
Jeff.
We've spent some time now
Breaking
breaking him in and building a relationship with our latest Lorain Journal reporter, and Jeff's been a really good guy to work with. He spends a lot of time calling me in the evening and on weekends, and he actually stays with his story and annoys me so much because he just keeps calling and calling to make sure his details are right. And I say that in jest, Jeff, I really do. He's moving on to a better opportunity. Why don't you come to the podium and tell us what you're going to do?
No, Jim, I think the Journal changes employees at their places often as we do at Golden Acres.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close. Jeff's going to be doing something really exciting, so.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I'm going to the Mississippi Delta region. I'll be joining Teach for America. I think I've told everyone about Lori right now, actually. It's a 2-year program where where you teach in low-income, struggling schools, and at the end of it, you get your teacher certificate. My girlfriend wants to be a teacher, so I'm going with her on this. Can't reliably find a job in this business, unfortunately, so this will be my next adventure. I hope to pursue the industry in the future, though. But it's good working with all of you, though, and I appreciate all of your help, Jim. I really all the late hours. But thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Actually,
Yeah,
Good luck.
you've been good to work with.
I don't think we had to break him in. He was already broke in when he got here. He's a sharp kid, and I bet you learned a lot in Lorain County, CRAs and all kinds of things, probably more than you wanted to learn.
More than I wanted.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, and what you're doing sounds so exciting. It's a great opportunity while you're young to do those things. Just to remind you about the executive session, Commissioners, I have no further discussion points this morning. Thank you.
I do need to discuss one matter of imminent litigation we didn't get to last week, so I would like to discuss that in executive session.
Commissioners report.
I told everyone last week that I was heading down to Bucyrus for John Penna. He is now the commander of the Fighting 5th District for the American Legion. Congratulations to John. We're very proud of him. It's a very emotional day. And I want to wish my assistant, Sherry Penna, a very happy birthday today. She's old. Oh, wait a minute. She's the same age as me, so she's not that old. So congratulations, Sherry. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Wow. Go ahead.
Yeah. Exciting week around the county administration building. For those of you who haven't read Jeff Green's or Brad Dickens' newspaper articles, I thought Brad felt offended he wasn't allowed to come up to the microphone. You want to say anything, Brad? No. Sure.
You have to leave in order to speak.
Did a very good job covering the fire. I'd like to thank the Elyria Fire Department. I don't know if he was a Captain or Lieutenant Dempsey who met us here at midnight. I'd like to thank Dennis Sharber and our entire maintenance department. They did a great job putting it together. All the contractors on board, they gave us a nice update on how they're fixing everything. Learned a lot about fire and soot damage and smoke damage. I don't think the place has ever been cleaner since it was built. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I think you're correct in that. I think we should have one of these about every 4 or 5 years.
That's what Commissioner Kukowski said before we started the meeting.
Most of all, I think we should thank George Carasy, who initially reported the fires so that we didn't have any further extensive damage. Appreciate him being a good citizen. I'd like to let my fellow commissioners and the public know that Elyria Catholic had their 11th annual Hall of Fame awards ceremony, and there were several honorees. One in particular that we might be interested in was Dave Davies, who was appointed by the commissioners to serve on the Children's Service Board and was a past chair. And since Dave lost his battle with cancer earlier this year, his award was accepted by Patty Jo Burtnett. And it was a very nice display about his contributions to the community, and it's a very nice ceremony. Commuter rail update. Our joint committee met yesterday, and we received a $12,000 check. No, it wasn't. It was 15. This is a typographical error. My gosh, I'm losing my secretarial skills. It was received from Barbara Hank, who is president of the Sandusky Erie County Community Foundation. And I also received a notice from All Aboard Ohio in conjunction with Detroit Shoreway and 10 Cleveland City Council members and Ohio City neighborhoods that are hosting 3 transit-oriented development public meetings. The goal of these meetings is to inform the community and the transit agency and rail service customers so that they can derive the greatest benefit from enhanced synergies between land use and public transit. They will be held on June 11th at St. Rose Church on Detroit Avenue, and Ohio City on June 17th, and on June 24th at the Detroit Shoreway. And this is in conjunction with our West Shore Corridor project. So we are moving along. That's my report, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Board correspondence?
Time. Shirley asked about a time. I'm sorry, Shirley. 6 to 7:30 p.m. in each community.
She was asking about
My hearing's gone too. No, I'm sorry.
Board correspondence?
I move the reading be waived.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Public comment?
Anybody from the public wishing to speak on any issue? Come on up.
Yeah, Teresa, you
I
had,
have the letter that you all signed.
okay, I think that's what Sharon's here for.
Oh, okay.
I'll
Okay.
get a copy of it. So.
All right. Good morning, Sharon.
Hi, my name is Sharon Kleppel. I'm with the Catholic Action Commission. Actually, I just thought I'd come up and say something about the transportation issue. I just talked to Richard Enty. You know, based upon what Janine had said, the need for, you know, looking at transportation, the monies we don't have, really grappling with the difficulty in deciding, I would just like to suggest that, you know, the idea or the sense of a task force. I know that as the commission, and actually in connection with the task force for the homeless, we've talked to a lot of people, you know, employers, social service agencies, colleges, JVS, the cities. There's a number of people from different sectors who are really interested in transportation for a variety of reasons. While we're getting prepared for a public hearing, and after having made some cuts, it appears to me that if we did develop a task force and put it together fairly quickly, we would really have some sense of perhaps what are some alternatives that we don't really know about yet, get some buy-in, create some collaboration, get a better sense of the impact, and to go to Mr. Cordez's point, it starts to build some sense in the community about the need for the tax issue and perhaps availability of money coming out of that tax issue. Right now, people don't fully understand. And sitting back there and listening, we very often, none of us, I think, fully understand all of the impacts. It's a huge system, and it covers so many things. So I just wanted to suggest that perhaps, you know, we could really do that, and I hope you could support that idea.
Thank you, Sharon.
And then you mentioned something else that you thought I had come for.
That letter that you called my
Mhm.
office, and Joyce referred you to Teresa. It's a letter about the homeless.
Mm-hmm.
In the North
Sign
Center?
it, so.
Oh,
I
it's
guess
signed?
Teresa has it ready.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much. Thank you for your time.
Seeing no one else, I move that we go into executive session as outlined by the administrator and assistant county prosecutor.
Second.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.